Today, we're getting under the hood of maternal mental health with Lauren Tettenbaum, a social worker and author specializing in women's reproductive mental health. What are the emotional and psychological effects of trying to conceive, especially facing infertility or loss?
Are a lot of emotional and psychological effects when trying to family plan or consider becoming a parent. And often those are heightened or exacerbated when infertility comes into play or a intended parent experiences some sort of loss. At the heart of this all is the inability to control the situation. We, for so long, prevent pregnancies or try to think when is the best time to have a baby. And we can try to control the situation with being on certain contraceptives and then going off and considering any genetic issues. But a lot of times, embryos just don't take, or there are other health problems that come to light. And so I see a lot of anxiety around that inability to control. Can be very stressful. There's often a lot of guilt, self-blame, isolation. And even if things are going well and smoothly, it's natural to feel ambivalent about becoming a parent or having another child. And it can just be very stressful and worrisome about what the future will look like, even if things are going smoothly. So I just want to say that all of these feelings, this range of emotions, is very natural, and you don't have to experience it alone.
How can women differentiate between normal stress during pregnancy and clinical anxiety or depression?
This is a great question, but I will preface my answer by saying that, in my opinion, if you're struggling at all, you deserve support. And frankly, I think anyone who is experiencing a major life change, like becoming a parent or getting pregnant or working with assisted reproductive technology, that deserves support automatically. That being said, PMADs, which is the acronym for perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, are very common. Up to 1 in 5 women experiences one, up to 1 in 10 dads experiences postpartum depression. And we want to keep an eye, of course, on what parents are feeling when they welcome a baby or when they're pregnant in that perinatal period, which is pregnancy through the first year of a child's birth. We might be familiar with something called the baby blues, but if that period of teariness or irritability or sadness lasts beyond 2 weeks, we say that professional help is warranted. And of course, if there's some sort of emergency in which the parent is feeling suicidal or like they want to hurt the baby or having some sort of hallucination, that's an emergency and we want to get that person immediate help. So, just to reiterate, normal stress can be normal in terms of it's to be expected. It's okay to cry, to let it out. Your hormones are wildly fluctuating. You're not getting enough sleep, but you deserve support, even if it's just that.
What role do hormones, trauma, and identity shifts play in maternal mental health across each life stage?
Hormones, trauma, and identity shifts play a tremendous role in maternal mental health. So let's just start a little bit with hormones. Our hormones are fluctuating like crazy when we are pregnant and then after the baby comes. And that's partly why we see those baby blues because the hormones are regulating and trying to get more even. We also see that again if a mother is nursing and especially if she weans pretty quickly, women often experience a bout of depression or anxiety that's heightened because their hormones are going like this. Certainly, trauma plays a role in mental health in so many ways. We know that women who have experienced trauma are at higher risk of experiencing a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder or really any kind of mental health struggle. And identity shifts, which is really the theme of what I specialize in my work as a psychotherapist, they are to be expected and yet can be really difficult to navigate when one becomes a mom or goes back to work after a maternity leave, which she's hopefully fortunate enough to have. And we know that women and men deserve support through all of it. So if you feel like something isn't feeling quite right or that you need additional support, please ask for it. It's available and you deserve it.
What are the signs and symptoms of postpartum depression, anxiety, or OCD, and when do they typically emerge?
Postpartum depression, anxiety, or OCD are all under the umbrella of PMADS, the perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. I do just want to clarify that a lot of people use the term postpartum to describe postpartum depression, but the phrase postpartum is just post-birth. And it's just a period of time. And anyone can experience depression during pregnancy. And also, if you didn't give birth to the baby. We see that the new shift, this major life shift, if you worked with a surrogate or adopted, that can still lead to mood symptoms related to depression, anxiety, OCD, etc. That being said, let's talk about what each of those diagnoses look like. So, postpartum depression includes crying a lot, feeling really tired, but having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, feeling sad, some rage and irritability often present and are not usually thought of as depression, but are very much symptoms. And those symptoms are actually quite common if they last beyond the 2 weeks, which typically that 2 week period takes place within the first month of the birth, and then you have the 2 weeks of the baby blues. And if someone is still feeling down, then that might be postpartum depression. Postpartum anxiety also typically presents soon after the birth and really involves a lot of worry, overwhelm, constantly checking if the baby is breathing, if the baby is on the right schedule. I work with a lot of moms who struggle with leaving the baby in the care of someone else, even if it's a very trusted caregiver. And that sort of behavioral strategy is something that we implement when they feel safe enough to do it, even leaving the apartment for 5 minutes or whatever it is. We work up to them feeling better. Postpartum anxiety can impact your appetite, energy, all of the things that we know we need to nurture when we become moms, but it can feel really consuming. And about 14% of women experience this mood issue. And then perinatal OCD is a form of postpartum anxiety or perinatal anxiety, but there's more of an emphasis on intrusive thoughts or compulsions to check that the baby's okay. Check the monitor is something that we see often. A lot of women can't sleep because they are checking. And that is something that comes up even when there is no prior history of obsessive compulsive disorder, but it's something that does happen to many. We see around 7 to 11% of postpartum women. And I just want to say again, because it is so serious, that postpartum psychosis, which is very rare, but very serious, is when a parent, usually the mother, because of all the hormonal shifts, is experiencing hallucinations or a desire to hurt herself or the baby. And she's often not able to see that that's not what she actually wants to do. She's really, they call it a heart attack of the brain. And it's extremely tragic when we don't help those women, but they need help. And so that's considered an emergency.
How does lack of sleep, physical recovery, and caregiving demands affect emotional well being in the first year postpartum?
I love this question because I love sleep so much, personally and professionally. Sleep is like medicine. It helps us heal physically and emotionally. And we can't understate the importance of sleep on a new parent. It's tremendously important, critical, imperative that each parent, if there are two, gets at least 5 hours of consecutive sleep. And we know that that's possible even if you're nursing. there are ways to feed the baby, to meet the baby's needs. And sometimes that involves asking for help from family members or hiring paid help. But it is so pivotal because when we lack quality sleep, we're not going to recover, and we're also at risk of mood issues. In general, physical recovery, of course, is needed and deserved. And that's partly why we are so adamant about advocating for paid family leave, because birthing parents need time to recover. But also, all parents and caregivers need time to bond, to take care of the baby, to help the co-parent in the house. And I love the question about caregiving demands and its impact on well-being because, of course, the caregiving demands never end, right? Even if you're back at work, even if baby's turning 1, even if baby is turning 18, you're caregiving. Once a parent, always a parent. Sometimes we say once postpartum, always postpartum. And I am a big believer and advocate for equity in the home when it comes to sharing caregiving and domestic tasks. And I believe that that really does start, frankly, during pregnancy, but certainly in that postpartum period, which is all the more reason why dads need leave and why employers need to understand that mom should not automatically be considered the primary caregiver, but rather we need to be supporting all kinds of parents and caregivers.
What barriers prevent women from seeking help for maternal health challenges, and how can they be removed?
Fortunately, there remain many barriers when it comes to seeking help, especially for women of color in America, for women who don't speak English, who don't have access to resources. I am happy to say that there are increasingly free resources available. I will give out the National Maternal Mental Health Hotline, which is 1-833-943-5746. It's really important that that is utilized without shame. Go ahead, you can call and get support from trained counselors. There's also Postpartum Support International, which is an organization that I have volunteered for and served on their warm line and on their board. And programs and resources like these are so key because women, moms, parents, all parents deserve support. Part of that support is the actual mental health counseling that they can get from a therapist like me. We also need systematic changes like parental leave, affordable childcare, just support emotionally in the workplace and in our culture, destigmatization. We need access to complementary services like doulas, lactation consultants, pediatric development experts, pelvic floor therapists, all of these providers that really are pivotal in recovery for the mom and frankly for the whole baby, for the whole family. But we are not getting access to those resources the way that we should be. And so I hope that by talking about these issues will improve those access.
How can partners, family, and employers better support women through the maternal health journeys?
Love this question. Acknowledging that women need mental health support is step one. And I would advise partners, family members, friends, employers to ask, how can I help you? What do you need? And that can be in the form of paid parental leave, a transition period upon returning to work. I used to be a lawyer, and we know that having a different target for billable hours when one returns after a leave period is tremendously helpful, as well as coaching through this period, offering support groups, things like that. But every person is different, and so what they might need might differ from the next woman. So ask what they need and then follow through, of course. For family members and friends who are well-meaning, there's a saying, everyone's asking to hold the baby, but who's holding the mother? And so if someone in your life is a new mom, please ask her what she needs and offer specific things, maybe to do the dishes or take the baby for a walk so she can rest or bring over her favorite food, whatever it is. Also, don't impose on her. And if there are sort of visiting hours, respect that. And then for partners, I would just expand on the idea that caregiving and domestic work should be equitable. I am a firm believer that dads are capable parents. They love their kids as much as moms. I don't really believe in something like the maternal instinct. I think that that is conditioned. And I think with my generation, I am seeing more dads step up and be there and be involved. Keep going and keep checking in with your partner about what she might need.
What unique mental health challenges do women of color and marginalized communities face during pregnancy and after?
This is such an important question that needs and deserves tremendous attention and funding and care in our country. We know that women of color experience bias in our healthcare system and many other systems. And the maternal mortality rate, especially for Black women in America, is way too high. It's unacceptably high. So we need our medical providers to get better training on implicit bias. We need media to have more equitable representation. We need policy to reflect the reality of an American family. And we just need to eradicate, I mean, quite simply, we need to eradicate racism and discrimination. And it's an uphill battle, but I am happy to use whatever privilege and power I have to contribute to this mission.
What are the long term effects of untreated maternal mental health issues on mothers and children?
There are so many long-term effects of untreated mental health issues on mothers and children. So there are physical issues. If the mom is experiencing mental health challenges during pregnancy, that can impact the fetus, and there are risks of preeclampsia, preterm labor, low birth weight. Then, of course, we also know about the attachment issues that might arise once baby is here. And perinatal mood and anxiety disorders don't disappear on their own just because baby turns one. So if those issues are not treated, then mom might experience long-term mental health struggles. Of course, that's really impactful for herself, her sense of self, her mental health. And it's also quite expensive. There's a loss of productivity. We are experiencing unnecessary costs to the healthcare system when she's not getting the actual healthcare she deserves. And of course, children are at risk of not getting their needs met when their moms are not doing well. There's also the suicide risk or the harm risk in extreme cases. But bottom line, a healthy mom is the best indicator of a healthy baby, whether that's during her pregnancy or after. And so that is what I strive to do for my clients.
What proactive tools, practices, or resources can help women protect and nurture their mental health at every stage?
This is a great question. And I will say that every woman, of course, is different. So, what might work for one may not be ideal for the other. That being said, some basics that are generally good rules of thumb include sleep, again, my favorite activity. Quality sleep is key, quality nutrition, getting outside to the extent that you can, and getting fresh air. Of course, counseling through talk therapy or other forms of psychotherapy can be really pivotal. Medication is a tool in our toolbox. We shouldn't be afraid to use it. It's often safe and effective during pregnancy. So please work with your care team if that's something that you need, whether it's an SSRI or other kind of medication that you need to take care of yourself. We know that learning how to regulate your emotions is a good tool, whether you're a new mom or a mom of toddlers, which can really drive one bonkers, or teenagers, whatever it is. It's good to practice mindfulness and taking care of yourself and then seeking support when you need to get complementary care. Those are good resources for every stage.
What are your top 3 tips that you'd like to share.
I would say that a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder is totally treatable. They are common. That doesn't mean that you have to suffer through them. So take care of yourself. And again, remember that medication is one tool in our toolbox if you need it. Number 2 is that a healthy mom is the best predictor of a healthy baby. So remember to put your oxygen mask on first. And I said that earlier, but I want to reiterate it because it is so, so key. And the last, I will borrow from Postpartum Support International, which is that you are not alone, and with help, you will be well.